first part of a pretrial interview conducted on Ms. Andrews at the DA's office. Mr. Garrity appeared on behalf of Mr. Clark. Maurice Moya appeared on behalf of Barry Porter, and we were present in her interview. During the first part of the interview at that point, they were questioning Ms. Andrews, and the question was talking about, that's what happened, okay, they were talking, it says, so this, you remember Tabitha coming in, and then what was that about? She came in and she paid for gas. She goes on to say, pretty much left, she paid for her stuff and went out. And then what happened? Her and Andrew were in there at the same time at my register. Do you know of Andrew from before or anything? No, because you seem to know his name, okay? But you know of his name now? I do. Okay, okay. And then I waited on them. They stayed there for a longer time than anyone would because they were looking at stuff. That is on the side of the register. And Mr. Gary goes on and says, okay. And Miss Andrews answers, and I waited on them, and actually I made a face to the other person that was there after they left because they took so long. All right? And then he changes, the interview goes to, well, how long have you been at Valero? And they go into her length of time at that point. Upon that, Your Honor, it was clear at that point that Miss Andrews had informed everybody that Mr. Romero and Miss Littles were there in the Valero at the same time, that she had seen them at the register, pretty much what she has testified to today. Now, upon knowing that, I don't, Judge, Your Honor, I don't know, I can't recall exactly whether somebody had mentioned to try to get back to Valero to see if that was there. I don't know whether Mr. Moya had asked us to look at it. I'm not sure exactly what. There was an attempt at Valero to make a contact on that situation. The problem is, Your Honor, they only keep those tapes for maybe 30 days at the most, and then they re-record over them. So that, at that point, there was no way that there was going to be a tape almost 11 months after the fact. That was...
Well, Mr. Lopez, let me interrupt. This is a first-degree homicide of a police officer.
Correct.
Okay? They get the video of her in there.
Right.
And I can't believe that they don't get the video of both of them in there.
Well, Your Honor, I think that
what... the video is the same day, and the second one isn't recorded over, but the first one is. What's up with that?
Well, Your Honor, the only thing I can explain at that point is that the manager had said that Miss Littles had given a statement indicating that she had been there. I would assume that they went back, looked at it, and they saw that particular video, and therefore they just picked that one out. I can't answer that, Your Honor. I didn't, that was not something that the district attorney says, go and pick that up. I don't believe that they spoke to Miss Andrews other than confirming that was her and that was at the time. So, but the thing is, Your Honor, I understand that may be the situation, but the reality is what if, let's just assume that even if the video had been destroyed or that the cameras weren't working, the fact of in-court identification or identification of anybody is based on memory. And that in and of itself, the case law is very clear that that is basically what you're trying to say. It has your memory been tainted in that sense. Now Mr. Clark talks about, well, Mr. Romero is adamantly denying that he was in that store. Well, let Mr. Romero get up there and testify and tell the jury that...
Mr. Lopez,
but I'm just saying...
We know that they can't do that.
Well, but to make that argument, Judge, and then say, Your Honor, that's what you should rule on. Well, we don't know if that... I mean, that's the situation. But what I'm saying is that the memory is going to be whether... Let's just assume that the video had been destroyed or the cameras weren't working, and that would have been the argument.
Or let's assume they never picked it up.
Or they maybe never picked it up. I don't know, Judge. From my understanding is they never looked. They saw that one, they picked that one out, and that's the one they went with. So until Miss Andrews came in February of 2016 and informed the defense, there hasn't been any motions filed. There hasn't been anything, Your Honor. They were aware of the situation. They were aware that she was saying that both of them were in the store. It's not a surprise. Mr. Clark makes it appear that this is such a big surprise to us. This was not a surprise, and therefore that's what we're basically indicating. I think the case law, like I said, Your Honor, is based on memory and whether that memory has been tainted in any way whatsoever. It goes to credibility. It goes to the weight of the evidence. The jury can make that determination. Mr. Clark will have an opportunity to cross-examine her and let it go from that point. So, again, she identified Romero in February of 2016, almost what now going on 9 months, Judge, before we're here. So, again, it's not a surprise. It's not like the state all of a sudden said, hey, look, this is what's going to happen. They were told in February that she claimed that she saw Romero and Littles together. So, in some respects, Your Honor, I guess I could possibly feel something that says, well, this was a surprise, no one knew about it. Well, I knew I had read it someplace. This is Mr. Clark's transcript of the interview, and there it is. So it's not a surprise, Your Honor. It's something that Ms. Andrews did make up. She has said it since February. She hasn't changed, and therefore they can argue about why there's no video, and they can argue about that situation, but I think when it comes to identification and identifying the defendant, it is based on memory, and whether there is a video or not, that goes to the weight and to argument. Yeah.
So first of all, Your Honor, the legal standard, the legal standard for in-court identifications is whether or not the state has proven by clear and convincing evidence that the in-court identification hasn't been tainted by some other outside factor. And what Mr. Lopez fails to tell the court was that when this woman was interviewed by the police, she said, the cop asked her, the police officer asked her, so to clarify, it was a guy or a girl, and she says, I believe so. But then goes on to tell the police officer that she wanted to make sure that she'd seen both of them in the store, and she went back and reviewed the video, and I'm looking at page 4, line 14, on line 10, and she says, I know, maybe I should have went back and looked, but I looked when the girl was there by herself because I was kind of wanting to make sure that I had the right people, but I never found the two at my counter. And when the girl was in there by herself, it kind of seen her. Now I know she was like, goes on to talk about the girl in the store. This woman went back and looked at video footage and never saw the two of them in the store. And that's what the state failed to leave out during their argument. The state has the burden of proving by clear and convincing evidence that this wasn't tainted. She told you during the individual questioning a moment ago outside the presence of the jury that she was first told by her manager that the two of them were in the store. This isn't an evil woman. She's adopted what her manager told her and is looking forward to her 15 minutes of fame whereby she gets to point out a cop killer in court. That's not a trustworthy identification. She went back on her own immediately, if you believe her first statement to the police, she went back and looked at the video and never saw the two people together at the counter. Even more odd, there's 3 video angles. 2 for stills and 1 for video. We know they're not on the video, and if you'll notice, Your Honor, that video footage also has the amount of the transaction and the dollar amount, and that's to prevent theft from the store. So setting that aside, for instance, just setting aside for a moment that maybe one of the cameras wasn't working, you still have 2 other still photo opportunities. A camera angle from the side, which shows no Mr. Romero, and a camera angle coming front and back, showing no Mr. Romero. There hasn't been testimony there's a back door that somebody could have gone out of. Mr. Romero was never in the store based on the state's very best evidence. So by clear and convincing evidence, I think that the evidence has shown he wasn't in the store. To allow this woman to take the stand and say, yep, I recognize him because I saw his tattoos, only goes to further prove that she saw Andrew's picture on the news. And she's adopted what her store manager told her, that in fact she waited on him. That's it. In a nutshell, this in-court ID is tainted and is not valid.
Can I quickly respond to it? Just short. Your Honor, I believe that Mr. Clark is wrong regarding the law. It basically says in State v. I think it's Carruthers, 79 New Mexico 347. Admissibility is dependent upon, one, a determination that the in-court identifications are not tainted by the illegal pretrial identification procedures. There has been nothing to indicate that there has been anything illegal done at this point. The argument that Mr. Clark just made, perfect argument to be made to the jury, Judge, and that's what it goes to. It doesn't go to the legal standard that is required under the case law. And again, if that were the case, then if something is destroyed or something is misplaced or not picked up, just as the court just didn't pick it up, then that can be asked on cross-examination and can be argued in front of the jury. The law is very, very clear, Your Honor. At 349 of State v. Carruthers, again, admissibility is dependent upon, one, a determination that the in-court identifications are not tainted by the illegal pretrial identification procedures. And I don't think that there's been any showing that there was anything illegal about it. And in February of 2016, it was clear to the defense that Ms. Andrews, she didn't come up and say this today. She said it back in February. And I think that at that point, I think Valero, any convenience store only keeps them for a very, very short period of time, and they just record over and over and over again. So it can be argued, and it goes to weight, Your Honor. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to stay with my original ruling. I'm going to find this clear that the in-court identification has not been tainted by any subsequent type of news media or the like, or even with the officer. But I'm going to give the defense counsel free range at cross-examination. The other question is there not a video of the defendant pumping gas?
Your Honor, we'd be more than happy for them to ask that.
Well, that's not the answer. If there's a video, then we need it. If there's not, tell us. I mean,
Is there a video of that, right?
Your Honor, she can answer it. They didn't have any camera pointing to the pumps. We asked that of her.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We ready? Mr. Lopez, you
Yes, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Okay. Why don't you call your witness back in here when you start? Mr. Lopez, you want to get the drink?
Pardon me, Your Honor? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, the other Lopez.
Oh, okay.
Chavez, I'm sorry.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Andrews, I was about to ask you at this point, is there anybody in the courtroom at this time that you recognize as the male individual that was with Ms. Littles on May 25th, 2015, on or about 7 o'clock or such?
Yes,
And can you point him out?
it's right there.
And what is he wearing?
He's wearing a purple shirt and purple tie.
Let the record reflect that she identified the defendant, Your Honor.
Also be back.
Now, Ms. Andrews, I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 289. Was this the individual, male individual, that was with Miss Littles on May 25th, 2015?
No,
That individual.
no,
That's State's Exhibit 288. Now, do you recall, Ms. Andrews, that back in February of 2016, you were interviewed at the District Attorney's Office by the defense team?
yes,
Okay. Do you recall whether or not you informed them at that time that you had seen both Tabitha Littles and Andrew Romero in the store on that day together?
I believe I did.
Okay. By any chance, Ms. Andrews, is there anything that has tainted you? In any,
Call for legal conclusion.
is there anything that has changed, that had affected you in any way of identifying Mr. Romero as the person who was with Ms. Littles on May 25th, 2015?
It's affected
Media,
me?
anything? Was Mr. Romero the person?
Yes.
I have no further.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
So, you're pretty sure of yourself today, correct, on your identification?
Yes,
And how many months are we since May 25th? Many months, over a year, right?
yeah,
About 18 months, 17 months?
guess so.
Right. I mean,
Yes,
Okay. And you've had a chance to meet with the district attorney several times preparing for your testimony today, correct?
right,
And they showed you some photographs, right?
right,
And between the time that day on May 25th of 2015 and today, you'll admit you've seen Andrew Romero on the news several times, right?
correct,
You've seen his photograph with the tattoo on his neck, right?
right,
And you've seen his name, right?
right,
And you know he's supposed to be a cop killer, right?
right,
And you knew that you were going to be testifying today and that you were going to be asked to point him out in the courtroom, right?
right,
And you know now that Andrew Romero, after seeing his picture on the news, that he's a slight Hispanic male with short hair and a neck tattoo, right?
right.
Now, can you tell me, are there any other slight Hispanic males with neck tattoos sitting at counsel table?
No,
No, there's not. And it's a silly question, but there's not, right? So when you're asked to identify Andrew Romero, the person you've seen on the news many times, right?
right,
There's only one choice, and that's the person sitting at the counsel table, right?
mm-hmm,
And
yes,
yes, and we got to be careful. We get in trouble with court.
that's fine.
So let's talk then for a moment about your testimony today, okay? Now you've worked at that Valero for 14 years,
Correct.
okay? And are you a manager?
I'm assistant manager.
Assistant manager. And do you have any obligations whatsoever on maintaining or keeping up the security videos?
We don't have to keep them up. They're on constantly.
Okay. And if I'm correct, and we may watch part of it in a moment, but if I'm correct, that security camera over the register that not only rings up exactly who's at your register, but it also rings up both the sale and the amount of the sale, right?
I would have to say it doesn't show every single one
Okay.
on the video.
Okay, but that's designed to protect the owners from theft, right?
Right, correct.
And it's also designed to protect employees, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because really what's very important, convenience stores can be dangerous places, right?
That's right.
And you've been trained in some security measures, right?
Yes.
And one of the reasons that there's that tape as you go out the door showing how it's a measuring tape going out the door. That's so you can get an indication of how tall somebody is when they're going out, right?
Yes.
So if there's a robbery, you can say, well, it was a white dude about 200 pounds and he was 6'4", right?
Yes.
Okay. And so you have that's a security measure. You have lighting outside to protect employees, right?
Correct.
And you have 3 sets of cameras, right?
We have 10 cameras in our store.
10?
Yes.
Okay. And they're all on a computerized system.
Right. DVR.
DVR. And you can't turn it on and off, right?
No.
Because it's designed to capture what goes down in your store, right?
Right.
What goes down, that Valero's open 24/7, isn't it?
No.
It's not.
We're an 18-hour store.
Okay. So it's supposed to capture 18/7.
Sure.
Okay. Including Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the vantage points we've seen today are from a side angle from the front door, right?
Yes.
And those are stills,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yes.
And we've seen the front door going in and out, right?
Yes.
And then we've seen the video over your register, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you've testified before that you recall specifically Andrew Romero, this man here, being at your register because he was there for between 3 and 5 minutes. Do you recall making that statement?
Yes.
3 to 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, if I recall correctly, the entire length of video that were reviewed previously was about 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Do you have any reason to believe that's inaccurate? What you looked at earlier, the video you looked at earlier, I believe was about 2 minutes and 49 seconds.
Correct.
Okay. Do you have any reason to believe that's not the proper time?
What's not the proper
That
time?
it was 2 minutes and 49 seconds long. What we watched was approximately 2 minutes and 49
Right.
seconds.
Right.
Okay. So based on your testimony, there is at least that much footage, if not 2 minutes more, of Andrew Romero plopped in front of your register acting creepy. Do you remember saying that he and Tabitha were in front of your register acting creepy?
Yes.
Okay. And there's only one entrance and exit for customers in your store, right?
Yes.
It's the front door, right?
Right.
And there's only one front, not a patio, but there's only one front landing of your store where you walk out, where there's an awning, right?
Yes.
Okay. And there's only one set of pumps, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if the video footage is running 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and if we've seen the video footage of Tabitha, and we've seen the still photographs of Tabitha, and we've seen Tabitha going in and coming out of the store, right?
Yes.
And we've seen her purchasing what sure looked like Cheetos, right? You remember
Yes.
her purchasing snacks,
Yes.
right? You'll agree with me that, do you have any knowledge or any reason to believe that the video footage with Andrew standing for 3 to 5 minutes at your counter was destroyed?
I don't know what happened.
Okay.
I don't know why it wasn't taken.
Well, do you have any reason to believe it was destroyed?
No.
No. And you'll agree with me that when this first happened, you didn't have an independent recollection of either of these individuals, right?
Right.
You were told by your manager that Andrew Romero and Tabitha Littles had been in your store, right?
Right.
So you didn't have an independent recollection of either one of them, but you suddenly had a flash of memory when you told they were in the store, right?
Yes, because she said it was the one with the tattoo on the neck, and that's what made me remember.
The one with the tattoos on the neck that you had seen on TV, right?
No, I didn't watch the news till after I talked to my manager. I
Oh.
didn't know anything about it.
Did you
Till
talk to
after.
did you see the news before you talked to the police the first time?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember talking to the police the first time and telling them that you went back independently and reviewed all of the footage from that day, hoping to see Andrew at your register, but not ever seeing him at your register. Do you remember telling the police that?
That I did not, yes. I did not go that far. I just got her on there and watched it, and then I was done.
Well, but do you remember being asked by the police some questions about this video footage and telling them that you remembered, you thought it was two people, right?
Right.
And that you wanted to make sure that you had the right people, so you went back and looked at the video footage from that day, from that time, right?
I did.
Yeah, and you never saw any video footage of Andrew Romero being in your store at any time, did you?
I did not find it, no.
Okay, and you looked.
Yes, I did.
And your testimony is that, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, your testimony is that Andrew Romero was in the store with Tabitha before she comes back and pays for gas, right?
Yes.
So it would have been in the few minutes, the video presumably would have captured Andrew coming into the store in a still video, right? Or a still photograph, presumably, right?
Yes.
And the video would have captured Andrew Romero from the side walking into the front door, right?
If that's the way he came in.
Well, is there a way for him to sneak in the back?
Well, the front, no.
Is there a place where he could creep in through a back window?
No, I'm just saying I don't know if he came from the side. He could have came from the front.
Well, we've seen the side angles, and that would capture walking from both the pumps or the side, right?
Yes.
So presumably if Andrew Romero walked in through the front door and didn't creep in through a window, there would be a still photograph of him entering the store, correct?
Correct.
And there would also be a frontal view of Andrew opening the front door and walking in to do whatever he's going to do, right?
Yes.
And it would have been in just a few minutes prior to Tabitha Little's video of her standing at your counter, right?
I'm not sure about the time.
Well, you said it was a few minutes before.
Well, it was before. I'm
Okay.
not sure if it was a few minutes.
Well, let's talk about that. How long were Tabitha Little's and Andrew Romero at the Valero?
I'm not sure how long they were at the Valero. I know how long they were at my register.
But that's not captured on audio or video anywhere, right?
I guess not. I have nothing to do with that.
Well, you've already told us that the video system is running all day,
Right.
every day,
Right.
and it's automatic,
Right.
right? And you can't turn it on or off, right?
Right.
And we've seen 3 separate angles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those take still and moving images, correct?
Okay.
Yes?
Yes.
And if we've seen 3 angles, that would lead me to believe from your previous testimony that there are another 7 camera angles that would illuminate who's in and out of the store, correct?
Right.
And have you ever seen any camera, video footage from any camera, at any angle, at any time, that showed Andrew Romero in your store?
No, I didn't see it.
Okay. Are you aware if anyone saw it, based on just on your knowledge?
Well, just on my knowledge from the manager watching it with whoever came to burn videos, she's seen it.
You think there's a video out there of Andrew Romero in your store?
Yes.
Have you seen that?
No.
You think there is an employee of the Valero that's seen Andrew Romero in the store? That's what you're telling this jury.
I believe there is.
All right. Where is there another angle by the back door? Like where you said Tabitha walked back toward the bathroom. Is there a camera by the bathroom?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And did you ever review the video footage of Tabitha stepping back to the bathroom?
Just the one that you've seen.
Her stepping away. But you've told us there are 7 other cameras recording footage 18
Right,
hours
but
ago.
I'm not going to sit there and watch all 7 cameras.
You're not. Well, were you ever given an opportunity to look at 7 cameras? 7 camera angles?
I could have if I wanted to, but I don't have time to sit there and do that.
Well, this is a pretty important question, ma'am. You're called
That's
upon.
correct.
You're called
I
upon to
get it.
testify in a first-degree murder trial on the death of a police officer, and you had the opportunity to look at this footage, did you not?
I had a little bit of time to look at footage, and that's what I seen.
Okay, and there's certainly other footage out there that could have either clarified in your mind whether Andrew Romero was in your store or not, right?
Right.
You could have looked at 7 other angles, right?
Right.
And you either didn't do so because you're too busy or didn't do so because you didn't care, right?
No, it was more too busy.
Too busy doing what?
And I did look.
No, too busy doing what?
Working
Okay, and where do you view the video footage? Do you review it at
in
your
the back room.
Okay, and so what's that? 10 or 15 steps from your station at the register?
No, yeah,
20 steps?
more than that.
How many people are on duty at any one time in the Valero?
1 to 2.
Okay, and so at any time during your shifts immediately following this the shooting, were there ever 2 people on duty at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, certainly that would give you the opportunity to step back into the office and look at video footage, right?
Yes.
But you chose not to do so, right?
I didn't feel I need to. I know who was in front of me at my register.
And who was in front of you is in no way captured at any time, any place that you've seen, correct?
Not that I've seen, no.
Okay. And you wanted to be sure that what you remembered was accurate, right?
That's what I was looking for, yeah.
And what- and-
Well, I knew it was, but I didn't find it, so I didn't bother.
And you took the step, to at least a limited step, to go back and to confirm what you thought you'd seen, right?
Yeah.
And what you saw on video was different than what you remembered because you never saw Andrew Romero on any video footage or on any stills inside that Valero, correct?
I didn't see him on the video. I seen him in front of me.
And you didn't see him on any stills? No
Still
still photographs?
No.
Okay. Now, the photograph that Mr. Lopez showed you of the person wearing the red shirt, right, with the neck tattoo,
Right.
have you seen that photograph before?
Yes.
Yeah, the DA's office showed you that
Yes.
before you came to testify, maybe last night, right?
Right.
And now, one of the things that we've talked about before is, are you aware of anybody else in the car, right?
Right.
And you said on direct testimony that you were able to look out and you were able to see what you described as the Durango, right?
Right.
Okay. And the Durango, do you remember if it had tinted windows or not?
No. I don't look that much. When somebody's paying for gas and they tell me what car, you glance at it, you see, and then you set the pump to make sure.
Like to make sure it's on number 5.
make sure it's the right
punch
pump.
the on
Right.
button for number 5.
Right.
Okay. Are there any cameras that can record either still or moving images under the pumps?
No.
Okay. And so you know for certain that there are no still or moving images under the pumps, right?
Right.
Okay. But what you can also say with absolute certainty is you don't know if there was other individuals in the car or in the Durango, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't see and you can't confirm that anybody else either got out or was in the car, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, let me see, I've asked this before. When you were asked to look at that picture of the person in the red shirt with the brass knuckle tattoo on their neck, right?
Yes. Yes.
You've said before that today on direct examination, I think previously, that you remember the person who was in the store, who you've identified as Andrew Romero, because you were staring at their neck tattoo, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I was staring.
Do you
at
remember
them.
anything distinct about that neck tattoo?
No.
Other than it was just a neck tattoo, right?
Correct.
Now, when we saw the picture of the person in the red shirt, do you remember what that tattoo was?
No.
So it just was a tattoo on that person's neck, right?
Right.
And as you sit here today, can you see, or were you able to see a tattoo on Andrew Romero's neck?
No.
Okay. But you will agree with me that the person who was in your store, the only thing you remember is that they had a neck tattoo, right? You don't remember any details.
Not of the tattoo, no.
Okay. Were you staring at it?
I looked at it a few times, not staring at it, no.
Over the course of 5 minutes?
That's approximately
Well, that's pretty important because,
Well, no, I was not staring at his tattoo the whole time. I don't stare at anybody.
okay. And was the person who was in your store, you've identified as Andrew Romero and Tabitha Little, were they standing in front of you for 5 minutes looking at you?
Not looking at me, but I was pretty much looking at them.
So you were looking at them, but just not at the tattoo?
And, yeah, looking at everything.
And you just said you weren't staring at them, but I think you just said you were looking at them for 5 minutes.
When I'm standing behind the counter and I have to wait for someone to finish what they're doing and wait on them, my eyes are going everywhere.
Okay.
So yes, I'm looking at them too.
What was the person, the gentleman in your store that day, who you've identified as now being Andrew, what was he wearing?
I don't remember what he was wearing that day.
Well, you've said specifically that you're able to remember that this guy right here was in your store. Tell me what identifying features other than maybe a neck tattoo.
His looks and his tattoo. And
Short hair.
seeing him the next day on the news, that was him.
So let's talk about the distinguishing features other than seeing him on the news after having been arrested for shooting a police officer. What race?
Hispanic,
Okay. What kind of hair?
black,
What length?
short,
What build?
skinny.
How many people do you have in your store in any given day who fit the description of skinny, Hispanic, male with short black hair?
Probably quite a few.
50? 100? 200?
Could be 50.
Could be more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we layer on how many of those guys have tattoos, that doesn't diminish that number, does it? There are a lot of Hispanic males with short black hair who are skinny with tattoos in and out of your store, right?
Yes, but not on their neck.
Okay. And you just saw a photograph of a Hispanic person with short black hair with a tattoo on their neck, right?
Sure.
Okay. And this is the reason that you went back to look at the video footage, because you wanted to be sure that this is the person that had been in your store, right?
It's not so much of wanting to be sure, it's just to see it.
Well, if you told the police you wanted to be sure, would you have been lying to them?
Well, just looking at it.
So when the police officer asked you how long did they stay there, and you said, I know maybe I should have went back and looked, but I looked when the girl was there by herself because I was kind of wanting to make sure that I had the right people, but I never found the two at my counter.
Right.
You wanted to be sure, right?
Well, sure, and just to see it.
Of course. And did it cause you any consternation? Did it cause you any concern that you didn't see on video what you were so sure you had seen earlier before the interview, before the police interview?
I'd say yes. I wondered why I couldn't find it.
Okay. All right. Very good. May I have a moment, Your Honor? Pass the witness. Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ms. Andrews, as soon as you heard, you went back to the store to look at the video, correct?
It was a few days later.
Okay, a couple of days later. It's because of the fact that you had remembered the individual, a Hispanic, short, skinny, tattoo on his neck, who was with another female that matched Tabitha Little's, correct?
Correct.
So when Mr. Clark asked you how many short Hispanic people, they weren't all with Tabitha Little's, were they?
Right.
Okay. Now, also, one last question, Ms. Ann. What you said today is the truth to the best of your knowledge, correct?
That's correct.
Are you here for your 15 minutes of fame, Ms. Andrews?
Oh, no.
What's that again?
I said, oh, no.
Okay, thank you.
Let me step down.
Mhm.
Is she subject to recall?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. State call your next witness.
The state calls Ryan Florsheim.
Before you take a seat, I need to swear you in, so raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and affirmative law?
I do, sir.
Can I take a seat? You get up close to that mic.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you please state your name for the court and spell both your first and last name?
Sure, my name is Ryan Florsham. First name is R-Y-A-N. Last name is F as in Frank, L-O-E-R-S-H-E-I-M as in Mary.
And, Mr. Florsheim, where are you employed?
I work for the City of Rio Rancho Fire Department.
And how long have you been with the Rio Rancho Fire Department?
10 years.
And what is your position there?
I'm a captain paramedic.
And as a captain paramedic, what do you do?
I primarily manage a crew of 4 people at my station. In addition, I also serve as a paramedic.
Okay. And were you on duty on May 25th of 2015?
I was.
And on that day, how were you made aware of the call that we're here to discuss?
We were dispatched to an officer-involved shooting at the intersection of Southern and Pine Tree.
And where were you at the time that call came in?
My partner and I happened to be sitting in our fire engine at the fuel pumps at Station 1,
And how far away from the scene is that?
approximately 2 blocks.
And being that you were right at your vehicle that close, did you have any thoughts about the situation?
Yeah, the circumstances were ideal, at least initially. There was no lag time from the time the call came out, from the time that we were already on the road. So we were literally responding immediately.
Okay, what would that normally mean for you?
Normally, it would take approximately a minute and a half on average for us to get out of the station and into our trucks and be on the road. So we were able to avoid that this time.
I see. And how long did it take you to get to the scene?
Less than a minute.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as states, or what's been admitted as states 392. Zoom in a little bit. Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good. Your Honor, may the witness stand? Can you familiarize yourself with that map, and then could you stand up and on the larger screen, can you show us what route you would have arrived to the scene at?
Why don't you sit down and use it?
We can do that.
Why don't you go down there where she's at?
Sure.
Use a pencil or you can use a pencil.
Use this right here. Go ahead and show us, and you'll be able to see it up here. What was the route that you took?
So our response from Station 1 would have been east on Southern, left on Pine Tree to the scene.
Okay, and go ahead and stay there for just a second, and I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 23. And does this photograph show where your vehicle came to a stop?
Our vehicle would have come to a stop approximately here, perhaps here.
Okay, we can take a chair. Now, once you arrived on scene, what did you observe?
As we arrived on scene, we saw Officer Benner laying on his back in the middle of the street with several civilians and a large number of Rio Rancho police officers performing CPR on him.
Did you recognize the officer?
I did.
And how did you recognize him?
I worked with Officer Benner for several years. It's a small department, so everybody knows everybody on a pretty familiar basis.
I see. And based on your training and experience, what was your assessment of Officer Benner's condition at that time?
I'd say Officer's condition at that time was very grave. He had lost a large amount of blood, and we could not find a pulse at that time when we arrived on scene.
And how many people were in the vicinity at that time?
A large number.
Okay.
There were a handful of police officers and then several civilians.
And what were they doing?
Everybody was either attempting to secure the scene or working on Officer Benner. Several people were doing CPR on him. Several others were placing tourniquets on the extremities that had been shot.
Okay. And did you start directing those people to do anything?
Yes, so we were the first ones on scene. We were in a fire engine, so we didn't have any medical equipment. The ambulance was shortly behind us. The people on scene asked us what they could do. They had already removed his shirt and his bulletproof vest. I instructed them to take his gun belt off, at which time we took the gurney out of the back of the ambulance, placed Officer Benner on it, and then moved him to the back of the ambulance where we could work on him.
How far behind you was the ambulance?
30 seconds.
Okay. So, let's see. Who rode in the ambulance with him?
So the paramedic from the ambulance, myself, the paramedic student, and another paramedic. So there was a total of 4 of us in the back of the ambulance.
Okay. And where were you headed?
We were headed to UNM downtown to the trauma center.
And once you left the scene, what did you do?
So the first thing we did was we removed the rest of Officer Benner's clothes to ascertain exactly where he was shot or how many times. We placed a heart monitor on him, at which point we found that he was in a rhythm called PEA, which means there's electrical activity in his heart, which means that his heart wants to live, but for some reason just wasn't producing a pulse.
You said that you checked to see how many times he'd been shot. Were you able to assess that?
It looked like he was shot once in the left arm or the left armpit, once in the left shoulder, and once in the upper right leg, upper right inside thigh.
Okay. Did you resume CPR?
We did.
Okay. And was there some way to administer medication to him?
Yeah, because Officer Benner had lost so much blood, we weren't able to start a traditional IV, so we had to resort to drilling a needle into his leg, into his left leg, in order to provide him fluid and life-saving medications.
And did any of the efforts that you were providing, did they show any effect on him at all?
No.
How long did it take you to reach UNM Hospital?
I'd say less than 20 minutes.
And what happened once you arrived there?
Upon arriving at UNM, we took him to the resuscitation room, where the doctors and the staff took over care. We remained there to assist them, and they worked on Officer Benner for an additional half hour or 45 minutes.
You stayed during that time?
We did.
What did you do while you were there?
We helped provide more fluid. We assisted with equipment and just helping getting all of our equipment off of him.
All right. May I have a moment, Your Honor? I'll pass the witness, Your Honor. No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, there's no question you missed it. May you be released?
Yes, by the state, Your Honor, yes.
Maybe, you want them to stay in the courtroom or you can go?
Thanks, sir.
Statement, call your next witness.
We call William Martinez.
Martinez, before you take the stand, let me swear you in. Raise your right hand, please. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and the penalty of law.
Yes, I do.
Go and take a seat.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi, can you please introduce yourself to the court and spell your first and last name for them?
Yes, it's William R. Martinez, William-Martinez.
Thank you. And where are you employed?
With the City of Rio Rancho
How long have you been with the City of Rio Rancho?
for 7 years now.
And what do you do for the City of Rio Rancho?
I'm a firefighter paramedic with them.
Okay. And what do your duties entail as a firefighter paramedic?
Respond to emergency and non-emergency calls to assist the public in any way they need and provide ALS care,
What is ALS?
advanced life support.
Thank you. And were you on duty in that capacity on May 25th of 2015?
I was.
And on that day, how were you made aware of the call that we're here to discuss today?
We were dispatched to the call
Where were you at that time?
in the station.
And how far away is your station from the scene?
Approximately a mile to 2 miles.
Okay. And what did you do when the call came in?
Got onto our rescue and proceeded to the call.
And did you discuss while you were on your way to the call what you were going to do whenever you arrived?
We did.
And what was it that you discussed?
The plan was pretty much to load and go.
Okay.
Sure.
And why was that the plan?
To offer him the best chances for survival, to get him to definitive care to the hospital.
Okay. And how long did it take you to arrive at the scene?
I do not recall how long. It was about 1.5 miles to 2 miles away.
Okay. Okay, I am showing you what has been admitted as states 392. And Your Honor, may the witness step down? If you can step over here, Mr. Martinez. Just using this pen, can you show us the route by which you arrived to the scene? Does that look familiar to you?
Yeah, it doesn't show. We pretty much just came from here and then there.
Okay.
Up west, east on Southern, and then north on Pine Tree Road.
Okay, and now I'm going to show you what's been admitted as states 23. Does this picture show where your vehicle came to a stop at the scene?
I do not recall.
You don't recall?
No, I don't remember if we were before or after where we were at, actually.
Okay, you can take it.
Okay.
Now, once you arrived on the scene, what did you observe?
There was a lot of police cars on scene. There was a bystander also on scene, or I don't know if it was, I was told that it was another healthcare provider off duty. And it seemed kind of like a chaotic scene when we arrived.
Okay, and what did you do when you arrived?
Stuck to our plan, pretty much got out of the rescue. Somebody turned over a report to me or gave me like a report of what happened. We proceeded to put Officer Benner on the backboard and onto the gurney and then to the back of the ambulance, got in the back of the ambulance and left.
Did you recognize Officer Benner?
I did.
How did you know him?
He's a close friend of the family, him and his wife.
Okay. How long had you known him?
Probably about 3 to 4 years.
And on that particular day, was this the first contact you had had with Officer Benner?
No, it wasn't. I had seen him earlier that morning on another call.
And what was the nature of that contact?
I don't remember. Oh, just in passing.
Just in passing. Okay. And did the fact that you knew him affect your plan at all?
I can't say that it really did. I mean, it was, like I said, we just made, when I heard the call, we had made the plan prior to even knowing it was Officer Benner.
I see. And who all was inside the ambulance?
It was myself, Captain Ryan Florsheim. I had a student with me. He was a firefighter with Corrales Fire Department, Bill Emilski, and the driver was Joe Cook.
Okay. And based on your training and experience, what was Officer Benner's condition at that time?
He was deceased on scene.
What did you do at that point?
At what point?
At the point that you picked him up and was headed for the hospital, what all did you do at that point?
CPR and advanced life support care.
Were you getting any response from him at all?
No,
How long did it take you to reach the UNM hospital?
I don't remember.
Okay. What happened once you did arrive?
Just normally what we do is we unload them and take them straight to the emergency room or trauma room and give a report to the emergency physicians. That's pretty much what we did.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to show you what's been admitted as states 21. Let me bring this back. Does this photo accurately depict the condition that Officer Benner was in when he arrived at the hospital?
I suppose so. That's the hospital gurney that
Okay.
he's on right now.
All right. And does it show any of the life-saving techniques that you attempted or that your team attempted in the ambulance?
I guess, yes, it does. It shows the original intubation tube and some of the electrodes on his chest, but nothing more.
Okay, I'm now showing you what's been admitted as states 22. And what are we looking at here?
And that what's in the hand of that provider, whoever it is an occlusive dressing that I myself placed on his back.
And to your knowledge, did any of the life-saving attempts have any effect on Officer Benner's condition?
No, ma'am.
Your Honor, may I have just a moment? I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
You have no questions from the defense on this witness?
Okay. May he be permanently excused as well?
Yes, sir.
Yes, by the state, Your Honor.
Understood.
Your Honor, state calls Agent Clint Norris.
Okay. Who swore you in? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and the penalty of law?
I do.
Then take a seat.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you please introduce yourself to the court and spell your first and last name for the court?
Yes, my name is Clint, C-L-I-N-T, Norris, N-O-R-R-I-S, and I'm an investigative agent with the New Mexico State Police.
And how long have you been with the New Mexico State Police?
8 years.
And what is your position there?
I'm a crime scene investigator with the State Police.
And are you an agent?
Yes.
And agent, what are your duties with the New Mexico State Police?
My duties now are I'm on call almost round the clock. I will respond to scenes, typically violent scenes or scenes where violent incidents have occurred, batteries, homicides, sexual-based crimes. I'll process the scene to whatever degree is appropriate for the investigation, identify, collect evidence, document through photography, through measurement, and we'll prepare reports based on my involvement in the investigation.
Okay, and what kind of training have you had that qualifies you to be called to those kind of scenes?
I've had the basic training through the New Mexico State Police Academy, and then I've had advanced training since coming on to the State Police or the crime scene team, both in the Investigations Bureau and on the crime scene team itself. I've been through the 400-hour course, National Forensics Academy in Knoxville, Tennessee. I've had advanced training in bloodstain pattern analysis, shooting incident reconstruction, the use of Leica's C10 high-definition survey scanner, and camera use and photography.
And how were you made aware of the incident that we're here to discuss today?
I believe it was on Tuesday, May 26, 2015, about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was contacted by my supervisor and made aware that an incident had occurred in Rio Rancho where an officer had been shot. I was asked to get in touch with another supervisor for the State Police Crime Scene team, Sergeant Mark Soriano, who was on scene. He asked me to bring the 3D scanner that was assigned to Las Cruces up to Rio Rancho to assist in documenting the scene with the scanner.
And what is a 3D scanner?
A 3D scanner is a piece of equipment that emits a laser pulse that when it interacts with the surface, depending on the surface reflectivity and positioning, a portion of that laser will come back to the unit and it will measure by use of angles and distances a point in 3D space, and it'll do that up to about 50,000 points per second in some cases. It can rotate on a 360-degree horizontal axis and can capture data on a 270-degree vertical axis. There's about 90 degrees at the base of the scanner that it won't pick up. Based on the amount of scan stations that I may employ, I can put it all into a computer program called Cyclone, put it together, and then I have a virtual 3D rendering of whatever scene that I scan.
Okay, and what do you do with that information?
Typically that's used to generate diagrams, such as what I did in this case. Two-dimensional diagrams are typical and standard for the basic investigation. 3D perspectives can be utilized within the Cyclone software. There are other aspects that if the investigation warrants it, can be utilized for measurements, for angular measurements, distance measurements, certain animation, taking a person through a scene if that is warranted. But typically the use ends up being a two-dimensional diagram.
Okay. And how many people does this machine take to operate?
To operate, just one.
Okay. And when did you arrive at the scene?
I got on scene about 6:57 a.m. On the 26th and met with Sergeant Soriano and other investigative agents for a briefing as to what occurred to bring me to that scene.
Okay, and then what steps did you take from there?
After the briefing, after getting a general knowledge of the basic investigation, I was just continuing my assignment to scan. There was another crime scene agent who was on scene, Agent Roger Brunson, who utilized the Albuquerque's scanner. We set up at different ends of the scene, I on the more western end, he on the more eastern end, and we worked from the outer extremities of the scene to the interior, scanning with the individual scanners. I collected all the data from my scanner as well as the data from the one he utilized, and then took that back to Las Cruces with me and utilized that data and software down in Las Cruces.
And prior to leaving, did you perform any other functions there at the scene?
No, just making sure that there was nothing else that needed to be done. Typically when we're done with our assignments, we'll make sure there's no evidence that needs packaging or anything like that. By about the time I was done, there was nothing left for me to do, so at about 4 o'clock I was released from the scene and traveled home.
Were you in contact with any witnesses there at the scene at all?
No, I was not.
Were you in contact with anyone who may have been a suspect at the scene?
No, I was not.
Okay. So once you returned to Las Cruces, what did you do?
After returning to Las Cruces, it was my responsibility to prepare a report and to utilize that data that I collected from on scene to prepare diagrams, which I did, and had those turned in.
All right, so let's look at this then.
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 392. Does this look familiar?
Yes, it does.
Can you tell us what we're looking at?
This is an overview. It's actually a Google Earth photo that I had taken from Google Earth and inserted into my diagram program just to show the overall scene as it basically was. I indicated on that on the actual diagram itself the north orientation, some basic roads in the immediate vicinity, just to orient the viewer to where things occurred. There are some red hatched areas, one just north of Southern Boulevard, that shows an approximate location of where a traffic stop was affected, according to the information I had received, and then another hatched area more towards the eastern end of the scene where the actual shooting was alleged to have occurred.
And would it assist you to come down to the machine and show people where the things are that you're talking about?
Certainly.
Is that okay? Thank you. Go ahead and you can point with this and find out what you're talking about.
Very good. On this scene, which one is the microphone I'm speaking into? On the scene, it occurred in the Country Club Plaza for the most part, and there was an Albertsons and some other businesses, Dollar General, Fobar, Smoke World, were the primary ones. Here in this corner is where I had been given information that the initial traffic stop was supposed to have occurred, just opposite of where the Arby's restaurant was. Then there was this area over here that I had circled and had a red hatching to show where Officer Benner's unit was and where the shooting was alleged to have occurred. There was an item of evidence that was discovered in the search of the area in a bush between the two locations. It's labeled as evidence number 29, and it consisted of a glass marijuana pipe, I do believe. So that was marked on this diagram in its particular location because it was overall, but it wasn't close enough to the other locations that are more specifically shown in the hatched areas.
Okay, go ahead and stay up here. I'm just going to show you the next one. This is State's Exhibit 393. And can you show us what this diagram depicts?
Yes, this is a second of 6 total diagrams that I prepared. What you're seeing here is a more close view of the area where the initial traffic stop was alleged to have occurred. I have labeled here the Arby's restaurant, a general hatched area where the traffic stop was supposed to have occurred, and the basis for its location was information that I had received that aspects of the traffic stop were seen through the drive-through window of the Arby's, and that just shows basic features of the layout of that area, the parking lot, the various concrete islands and lights and everything that were in that particular area.
All right, and this is State's 394. And go ahead and show us what we're looking at here.
This gets a little more close, showing primarily the Arby's restaurant and the approximate location of the initial traffic stop. The reason that I made a more, as it were, zoomed in diagram for this was so that I could show distances, dimensions of the Arby's restaurant, aspects of the scene that may or may not have played into what happened, particularly the islands, the street lights, and just the structures that were in that immediate area.
Okay, let's go to this one next. Take these out. This one is State's 397. Let's see if I can... Let me zoom in a little bit on this one. So this one has some red markings. What are those red markings?
On this scene, there were 2 different types of items that were identified. There were actual physical items of evidence, items that could be picked up and collected, as well as items or areas where there were suspected bloodstains. The actual items of evidence were marked with a green evidence marker, and the bloodstains were marked with, or suspected bloodstains were marked with red evidence markers. So in this particular diagram, in an effort to keep the diagram itself from being cluttered and confusing, I highlighted just the items that were marked as suspected bloodstains.
All right, I'm going to take you back real quick. We're going back to State's 394. And I noticed that you have some numbers here. Actually, right here.
Yes.
And there's some other numbers like that. Can you explain what that is?
Those are dimensions. The approximate distance between the drive-through window of the Arby's restaurant and this eastern portion of the approximate location of the traffic stop measured to be about 21.8, almost 22 feet, just to give a perspective on what kind of a distance was between that area. Further down there at the egress off of Southern onto this area, I got another dimension showing the width of the road at that point, just over 32 feet.
This one is State's Exhibit. Actually, Your Honor, this one has not been admitted.
Can I show it to counsel?
this will be State's Exhibit 448. And I'm showing you what's been marked as
There's no
State's...
objection to that being admitted?
No, Your Honor.
Oh, no, you're not.
Okay, they'll be admitted.
So I'm showing you what's been now admitted as State's Exhibit 448. Let's try to get that in the middle. This one has some green markers. Now, first off, it says at the top of it that this is an amended. Can you point that out?
Yes, on my title area, it shows that it's a scene diagram amended, and it's the amended diagram number 5 of the 6 that I prepared. After a pretrial interview that I had in March of this year, it was brought to my attention that there was a discrepancy between this diagram and where evidence numbers were located and some other diagrams. Of particular note was right here where it said it's a green box with number 31 in there. On the previous diagram, the original one that I had done, that showed number 29. And where the confusion and the discrepancy was is in my report, in the evidence logs, and in my in the previous diagram, as well as my legend that explains what the individual's numbers were. Evidence 29 was the marijuana pipe. And you may recall initially I had said that that was located in that green bush. And it was pointed out that I had put number 29 in the place of what is on this diagram, number 31. That was a typographic error on my part. As I was preparing this diagram, these are nothing more than just boxes that I had placed, a green background in and a number. And I had mistakenly put 29 instead of 31. 31 was an evidence item that was, I believe, a driver's license or a state form of identification from Ms. Tabitha Littles. And that is, in fact, what was in Officer Benner's unit. The 29 was nothing more than a typo on my end. It was, and it was corrected and reflected in a report and entered in as scene diagram amended.
Now, these boxes are green instead of red. Why is that?
Again, the green evidence markers were showing where actual physical items of evidence were located. Such things as, and I don't recall all of them off the top of my head, but there was a key, there was some just physical items that could be collected and packaged and taken from the scene for evidentiary purposes. And so this shows the approximate locations of where each of those items were placed.
And before we move forward, was there some kind of key to what each of those items were?
Yes, at the back end of my diagrams in that particular attachment, there's about 3 pages of a diagram legend, and it shows what my reference points were to lock in the distances to the individual items. It identifies the green numbers and the red numbers to let you know what they were, suspected blood stain or particular item of evidence. And it also locates a couple of key areas such as the tire locations for Officer Benner's unit. There was an acceleration mark that was also measured in. And this is on your display. You'll see a portion of my diagram legend. It's got the same basic heading, diagram legend. You can see that I have, for instance here, the rear Rancho PD unit, its left front wheel, its right rear wheel, distances from my reference points to those objects, the acceleration mark, and then items of evidence, and then just some notes at the bottom what my reference points were, and just a note that diagram's not to scale, and there's an approximate value to the distances in the diagram.
And Your Honor, this diagram legend is entered as State's Exhibit 398. And now I'm showing you what's been admitted as State's 395. And you have to back up a little. You may have to move it around. Let's actually move in, and then you can move it around. Okay, tell us what we're looking at.
This is the 4th of 6 diagrams that I prepared. Try to get that. And it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see diagram 4 of 6 at the bottom right corner. What this is showing is a little bit more of an overall view of where Officer Benner's unit was located. I didn't put, other than evidence item number 28, I didn't put the other markers just because it's focused out so much that they would just be a glob of green and red. Mostly I was just trying to place things in their overall scene context. You have Pine Tree Road Southeast, and then this is the Esterbone Memorial Library and the parking lot that was attached to that. After the initial scene investigation had been concluded, I was informed that through follow-up investigation there may have been someone on scene at the approximate time that this shooting had occurred. And so I believe agents with our crime scene team up here in Albuquerque went out and scanned this whole general area and informed me that the approximate location was this parking stall. So this showed the location of Officer Benner's unit in its proximity to the library parking lot, and the approximate location of where this witness vehicle may have been located. I included an approximate distance that spanned from where the vehicle may have been located and Officer Benner's unit, as well as just your basic features and items that were there on scene.
And what is that distance?
The distance reads 206.4 feet.
Okay. Can you explain to us what this mark right here is?
This is labeled as an acceleration mark. There was a darkened area on the asphalt that was consistent with a mark left behind as the vehicle accelerates from one location to towards another. It was documented on scene, and so there's also something that my scanners documented, and I placed it in there as having possible import to the nature of the investigation.
Okay. Is there anything else on the diagrams that you think would be important to show?
I think that pretty much shows the scene as I had found it when I was there.
Okay, then go ahead and have a seat. And Agent, did that conclude your involvement in this case?
Yes.
I'll pass it, Mr. Rowland.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, so this is going to sound like a silly question, but one of your jobs as a crime scene technician or a crime scene expert or a crime scene agent is to preserve a scene as best you can with all of the tools at your disposal so that you can give a rendition by whatever method later on in an accurate sort of way. Would that be an accurate description of your job?
I would agree with that.
All right. And there's many ways that you're able to preserve a crime scene, not only you, but other evidence techs, photographers. This great device, this laser device is fantastic, right?
Yes.
Because the laser device doesn't lead you to have to speculate how far it is from that door. You use a laser target, and then it gives you a reading. You know it's exactly so much distance, right?
That is correct.
And so you no longer have to use the roller wheel or whatever you used to have to do in the past. This is very precise, right?
Correct.
All right. But despite the precise nature of many of the things that you're able to gauge or you're able to garner from your information, some things are still left for speculation, right?
I would have to have an example, but...
Well, for instance, you don't have any evidence for the jury about who actually shot Officer Benner, right?
I don't have that
Right.
evidence, no.
And so, and there's not a video of the shooting of Officer Benner, right?
To my knowledge, no.
And so some of the things, and that's what trials are for, some of the things are for the finder of fact. That's the jury, right?
Correct.
So you can, you're tasked with making sure that the things you are able to observe at a crime scene are preserved to help the finder of fact make the ultimate determination in a court of law, right?
Agreed.
Okay. So let me show you a photograph that's been marked as 433. So 433, that's one of the photographs that you identified earlier, right?
I haven't identified any photographs.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me just ask you then. 433, do you recognize that photograph as depicting anything that you saw on the evening of May 25th?
Generally, yes.
Okay. Now, for the jury, and I think you talked about this a little bit earlier, the green cones. What are green cones for?
The green cones are indicating physical items that were collected, such as number 22 looks to be some sort of a bag or a satchel. Number 16 looks like it may point to an article of clothing, things that can actually be physically picked up and collected.
And green cones will differentiate between orange cones, right?
Correct.
And what do orange cones stand for?
The orange cones were marking suspected areas of bloodstains.
Okay. Now, one of the things that a photograph enables us to do is we see both the marker cone 4, but we also see what certainly appears to be a large amount of blood on the pavement, right?
Correct.
Okay. And in the left-hand corner, we see a cone. It looks like it's 21, if we can't see it. Well, I'm going to do this backwards. May I get Judge Holt? Let me. 21 looks like it's either for an article of clothing or for the officer's radio, right?
It would appear so.
Okay. Now, when you were at the scene, did you make any observations about a presence of things or a substance that didn't involve officer clothing or shell casings or blood or clothing or other things that would typically be involved in a homicide?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Take a close look at all those orange dots.
Okay.
All right. Do you know what those are?
Not off the top of my head, I don't.
You don't know? And no one's ever told you that appears to be Cheetos?
That sounds familiar, but that was actually beyond the purview of my specific task, which was the documentation through the scanner.
Okay, okay. And so you didn't document the presence of foods, fake orange cheese food substances?
No. As a matter of fact, I relied on an evidence log to correlate the numbers that were on scene with what my diagram legend would depict.
Let me ask you this. Since you didn't collect and you didn't document, you have seen crime scene photographs in this case, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have any reason to believe that what's been marked as states 432 is anything other than an accurate representation of both the blood and the officer's clothing and the cones and then this orange substance that you can't identify?
I have no reason to believe otherwise.
And the proximity of said orange substance appears to be in very close proximity to what we know to be the officer's clothes that were cut off of him as resuscitation was going on and his equipment and then that blood, right?
That appears accurate.
Okay, very good. Pass witness. Thank you, sir.
Maybe, right?
No, Your Honor.
Maybe you release?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Case you may leave or you may remain in the court.
Thank you.
Let's take a 10-minute break.
All rise.
Be in recess for about 10 minutes.